12 hours into a shift that wasn't even hers, Tara soldered the final contact point with hands that felt like rubber bands soaked in coffee and betrayal. The lab lights buzzed overhead like flies too lazy to land. At 10:42 p.m., she finally got the junior engineer's code working again. It was the third time this month she'd fixed something, while his sorry ass was probably home watching Shark Tank reruns and burning Kraft singles onto a tortilla. The next morning, during the all-hands stand-up, Rick, the CTO with a buzz cut so tight it could double as a cheese grater, pointed his coffee mug at the dev team like it was a pistol. "Time to trim some deadweight," he chuckled. "Some of y'all acting like we pay you in compliments and Red Bulls." Laughter. Forced. Brittle. Tara just stood there, her smile welded to her face like a bad weld on a pressure sensor. She wanted to scream, "You mean the deadweight who saved your ass on that forklift automation last month? Or the one fixing everyone's spaghetti code after hours?" But instead, she nodded, the way overworked women do in meetings when they've got bills and no leverage. Back at her desk, she opened her inbox and saw it. Subject line, "Welcome to the Supplier Integration Network." The deal was real. The industrial distributor she'd been quietly emailing at 2 a.m. for the last 4 months had accepted her prototype. Her tiny garage-built sensor, stitched together with salvaged parts and spitball ambition, was getting integrated into a national supply chain. Tara blinked at the screen like it was lying to her. Then she laughed, quiet, stunned. Kind of laugh you give when the universe stops punching for 5 seconds and hands you a Band-Aid. And listen, while we're here, if you're one of the 97% who binge these stories but haven't hit that subscribe or like button, come on. You're basically enjoying the buffet and ghosting the tip jar. Toss us a click. It fuels the team faster than gas station coffee and keeps the drama flowing hotter than a soldering iron on a cheap PCB. Anyway, Owen at work knew. She didn't wear it like a badge. She was still just Tara, the quiet senior engineer who never clocked out and always picked up the slack. What they didn't see was that her little side hobby now had a PO number and a FedEx account. She still felt torn. Should she tell someone? Would it be weird to celebrate with a team who thought a good day was when Rick didn't call your work meh in front of everyone? By lunch, it was back to debugging a firmware regression someone else introduced. No one noticed her extra energy. No one asked why she hummed while organizing test data. At 3:47 p.m., while validating sensor tolerances, her phone buzzed again. It was a follow-up email from the distributor. "We'll finalize the contract details next week. The pilot deployment starts Q3. Congrats, Tara. This is big." Her hands shook. Not from fear, adrenaline. She reread the line 3 times. She didn't know it yet, but in 17 days, that email would become a chokehold around Rick's entire supply chain. That little sensor she prototyped on a $200 budget with scrap wire and bad lighting, it was about to become his company's main artery. But for now, she just closed the tab, exhaled, and went back to soldering someone else's failure. Not knowing that in 2 weeks, they'd all be soldering to her, because comfort is a trap, and Tara was already halfway out. It unraveled over an invoice. One stupid, misrouted invoice. Friday morning, Tara walked into the office with her usual armor on, oversized hoodie, travel mug filled with gas station sludge, and a playlist that made her feel less like a cog and more like a woman trying to outrun burnout. She was halfway through debugging a failed sensor protocol when procurement Karen, clipboard queen, passive aggression connoisseur, dropped a manila folder on her desk with the grace of a pissed-off librarian. "Rick wants to see you, now." Inside the folder, an invoice addressed to Viron Technologies LLC with her name on the contact line, from one of their shared suppliers. She blinked. That invoice wasn't even supposed to route through that branch. It was a test shipment, non-priority. A trial batch sent ahead of schedule. Tara's stomach dropped. Rick's office smelled like artificial peppermint and ego. He sat behind his desk, chewing the arm of his glasses like he thought it made him look smarter. It didn't. It made him look like a stressed-out possum trying to read tax law. "So," he said, tossing the invoice across his desk like it was a dead rat. "Want to tell me why I'm learning about Viron Technologies from a supplier who thinks you are their new distribution partner?" Tara tried to speak. Mouth worked, but the words hit a mental roadblock paved with panic. "It's a side project. I cleared it with legal a year ago. My contract doesn't prohibit external work, just conflicts of interest, and this isn't one. It's not even the same product line." Rick stood, slowly, dramatically. like he thought he was in a courtroom drama instead of a poorly lit office next to a malfunctioning soda machine. A side hustle, huh? He sneered. Thought you could run Etsy for nerds on my clock. While I'm signing your checks. Tara clenched her jaw. It's not Etsy. It's a legit integration pilot. And I never used company time or resources. But Rick was already tuning her out. His face was the color of canned tomato soup, left out too long. He waved her into the main conference room, where half the engineering team was gathered for what was supposed to be a dry performance review meeting. Instead, Rick turned it into a public flogging. She's been double-dipping, he announced, taking advantage of our goodwill while building her little toy business on the side. That's what happens when you stop being loyal. The silence in the room was deafening. No one knew what to say. A few looked at their shoes. One guy actually winced. No one defended her. Tara stood there, burning with shame. The kind that seeps into your clothes and sits behind your eyes. I thought about the nights she stayed late fixing other people's code. The projects she salvaged from technical hell. All wiped clean because of one man's fragile ego and a misfiled invoice. By 3 p.m., HR had her sign the termination letter. Effective immediately, it said. They didn't even let her pack her desk. Someone from IT handed her a box with her coffee mug and a single post-it with the words "good luck" written in chicken scratch handwriting. She walked out with no fanfare, no thank yous, no dignity. She sat in her car in the parking lot for 20 minutes, staring at the steering wheel like it had answers. She didn't cry, not yet, but something twisted in her chest, tight, sour, volcanic. At 4:16 p.m., her phone buzzed. A message from the distributor's rep, excited to kick things off soon. Let's talk next week. And just like that, the grief was replaced with something harder, something sharper. Thought they buried her. But they forgot she built machines that could rise from the dirt. The first 2 days felt like drowning in lukewarm soup. Not the dramatic, movie-style grief with rain and violin music. Just empty Tupperware depression. Tara sat in the same hoodie on the same stained couch, surrounded by half-eaten Hot Pockets and unopened mail, watching YouTube tutorials she didn't need and ignoring every call from her landlord. Rent was due in 4 days. Her checking account read $381.47. She stared at the number like it was mocking her. A cruel little middle finger blinking in digital green. That Saturday, she tried to apply for a few jobs. Engineering roles, remote contracts, even a gig assembling drones for a YouTuber who used the phrase grindset unironically. Every resume she submitted felt like a betrayal, like slapping duct tape over her real self just to survive. By Sunday, the rage kicked in. It came while she was scraping melted cheese off a coffee filter because her toaster exploded and she refused to eat another cold meal. She looked around at her tiny, cluttered apartment, the dead succulent, the broken fan, the busted vacuum she'd meant to fix for 6 months, and she cracked. Laughed. Cackled, actually, kind of unhinged wheeze that ends with mascara tears and a sudden, terrifying clarity. She didn't want another job. She wanted revenge, not the dramatic kind. Not movie scene revenge. Just success. Cold, scaling, untouchable success. The kind that tastes better than apology cake and leaves no room for pity. She opened her laptop. Dusted off the spreadsheet she'd labeled Project V Viron Technologies. It had been her maybe one day dream, tucked between her freelance invoices and failed Airbnb designs. At 1:12 a.m., she called the supplier partner, Mitch, a sales rep with too many buzzwords and a surprisingly kind voice. "Mitch, I got fired," she said, "no sugar. Pause, damn, that sucks. Wait, was it because of us?" Kind of more silence. "Then you still want in what? Fast track deal. We've got a distributor slot opening next quarter, but I can talk to legal. Push it up." She blinked. "Serious?" "Hell yes, I'm serious. You're smart, your sensor model works, and we're sick of babying Rick's Frankenstein order system. You free for call Monday?" She looked around her living room. Empty pizza box, broken dream catcher. A cat she didn't own sleeping on her porch. "I'm free," she said. Monday came with caffeine and fury. She incorporated her LLC that morning, filed the paperwork between bites of peanut butter toast and blasts of 80s synthpop. Viron Technologies, LLC. It looked like a typo. It felt like a revolution. She spent 12 hours mapping out the supplier matrix. Everything Rick's company depended on, sensor caps, sealed modules, custom nodes, was on the same 3 vendor lines. 2 of them already rerouted through Mitch's parent company. She just had to lift the pipes, change the tags, and add her name to the flow. It felt surgical, like rerouting blood flow in a sleeping giant. She set up a modest business account, put her last $300 into a bulk capacitor order, ate ramen that night, not out of necessity but principle. By Thursday, she had her first contract signed. A tiny order, a starter batch, barely enough to pay half a month's rent, but it had her name on it, her company, her specs, her price. By Friday, she had her first subcontractor, retired machinist from Tulsa who loved working with weird ladies doing weird shit in tech. She smiled more that week than she had in months. The fear didn't vanish. It just got buried under momentum, under spreadsheets, solder fumes, and midnight Slack messages. She wasn't out of the woods yet, but the dirt was fresh, and she was planting landmines. The garage was never meant to be an office. Hell, it wasn't even meant to be a garage, just a slanted concrete coffin barely wide enough to fit her 2007 Civic, now exiled to the street like a shamed mutt. But by week 2, it had become mission control. Extension cords slithered across the floor like digital vipers. Old IKEA shelves groaned under the weight of labeled bins. 3-pin, thermal glue, do not touch, live. She kept her router on a milk crate. Her soldering station on an old card table that shook if you breathed too hard. Every time she powered it up, the lights in the kitchen flickered like they were bracing for impact. But it worked. Tara slept 4 hours a night max. She'd wake up with resistor outlines on her cheek and one arm under her laptop. She ate standing up, drank coffee like it was oxygen, and learned more about industrial tax loopholes in 5 days than in 5 years at her old job. She rewired her life, line by line. Supply chains came first. It sent over internal PDFs from their procurement ecosystem, normally locked behind NDAs and B2B firewalls, now open just between us. She color-coded every route, every order pattern, and every weak spot in Rick's flow. What she saw made her whistle low. He had no idea how fragile his ops had become. Vendor supplied 62% of their core sensors. Vendor had just moved their bulk processing through Mitch's channel, which now meant through her. All she had to do was apply a pressure point. She didn't block him. Not yet, that was coming. No, she made it slow. Delays, backlogs, misrouted confirmations. The death of 1,000 professional paper cuts. Meanwhile, LinkedIn DMs started rolling in like tidewater through a cracked dam. Hey, saw your update. Congrats on the launch. Not gonna lie, it's chaos over here. Ops is scrambling. You got out at the right time. Chance you're hiring contractors. Tara read them in silence, half grinning. The same people who once politely ignored her ideas were now peeking over the fence, realizing the lawn was greener because she'd stolen the damn fertilizer. The big one came on a Tuesday night at 11:37 p.m. A name she didn't expect, Gabe, the junior engineer she used to mentor. Still a bit green, still nervous around Rick, but smart. Real smart. His email subject line, "Don't hate me for this." Attached, an Excel file. She opened it, stared. It was a projection chart of every single component dependency Rick's company would run into over the next 6 months, color-coded for urgency. Labeled meticulously, with sourcing notes and part numbers. And dates. At the bottom, they haven't noticed how dependent we are on your lines, yet. She stared at it like it was sacred scripture. Power wasn't just in knowing how to build. It was knowing when things would break. She replied with a simple, "You ever want out, call me. I'll make room." From that point, something shifted. Tara wasn't hustling for survival anymore. She was building a system, a network. Every call she made to a robotics SME turned into a meeting request. Every late-night invoice she submitted under Viron Technologies got processed faster than expected. Her LLC, once a paper shell and a pipe dream, started generating momentum. Her Google Calendar looked like a multiverse, meetings, deliveries, 4 a.m. check-ins with warehouse testers. She even got invited to an industry Slack group she'd been quietly banned from back in the Rick days. People wanted to talk now, wanted to listen. Every time she heard Rick's name, it was followed by a sigh or a whispered, "He's not handling things well." She didn't gloat. Not out loud. She did print Gabe's spreadsheet and tape it to the garage wall, right next to a post-it she scribbled during one of her sleepless fits. Strategy is just anger with blueprints. The scent of solder and cheap printer ink filled the room. Somewhere outside, a car alarm wailed into the void and nobody cared. Inside that garage, Tara just kept building. The email hit Tara's inbox at 6:42 a.m., timestamped from some red-eyed procurement analyst, probably on his 6th cup of coffee and 5th panic attack. Subject, Vendor Consolidation Initiative Q2 Streamlining. The body was corporate, nothing speak, classic Rick. In an effort to centralize strategic partnerships and reduce redundancy in component acquisition, we'll be limiting procurement to preferred vendors starting this quarter. Translation. Rick was trimming the fat, cutting out non-essentials, probably to make his quarterly numbers look less like a car crash and more like a fender bender. Tara snorted into her mug. Preferred vendors. She opened her supply chain dashboard. 3 of the top 4 components Rick's operation depended on, sensor modules, thermal calibrators, and embedded mount kits, were already funneled through her. He didn't know. He had no clue. Some intern probably looked at the old supplier name, saw the order still going through, rubber-stamped it without realizing everything had been quietly rerouted through Viron Technologies. It was a beautiful oversight. Like watching someone confidently walk into a glass door they installed themselves. She forwarded the email to Mitch, subject line, "Guess who just consolidated into me?" 2 hours later, she got the reply, "Let's make it official. All routing contracts will list Viron as sole partner starting next week." Want to draft the announcement. She leaned back in her cracked garage chair and let the silence settle. It wasn't joy, not really. It was something deeper, heavier. A slow exhale after holding your breath too long. Control, she finally had it. She drafted the language with the precision of a surgeon. Neutral tone, no gloating, just clinical, transactional dominance. Effective immediately, all bulk orders previously routed through supplier will now be processed exclusively via Viron Technologies, LLC, in accordance with strategic fulfillment streamlining. She clicked send. Somewhere in Rick's office, a procurement coordinator was about to have the worst Tuesday of their life. But the cost started showing itself too. Her phone buzzed later that afternoon, unknown number. She let it ring out, but then the voicemail notification popped up. She hit play. "Hey, it's Nia. From your old team. Look, I know things ended messy, but we're drowning over here. Firmware bug from last cycle still isn't resolved, and Rick's too busy yelling about supplier delays to realize the deployment's crashing. I think Gabe quit. He just walked out." Tara sat still. Another voicemail came in an hour later, another voice from the past, cracking slightly. "I'm sorry for how things went down. You didn't deserve it, just wanted you to know." The controlled part of her brain wanted to feel nothing, wanted to keep this clean. Business. Part of her hurt. She knew the bug Nia was talking about. She'd flagged it 3 weeks before her firing. It was buried in a batch of legacy code Rick refused to deprecate because he said it still technically works. She almost opened her old Git repo, almost reached for her archive of the patch notes. But then she remembered the Etsy for Nerds comment. The look on Rick's face when he humiliated her in front of the team. Way HR handed her a cardboard box like it was a party favor. No, this was the cost of dismissal, of arrogance, of treating builders like backup dancers. She added a note to her whiteboard, "Do not intervene. Let IT burn." Later that night, she packaged a rush order for a small robotics startup that actually thanked her for including a printed pinout diagram in the box. She signed it with her initials and a tiny smiley face, just to remind herself she wasn't becoming Rick in reverse. Control wasn't cruelty, but it did come with a body count. And right now, Rick's production line was about to start hemorrhaging time, money, and reputation, and he'd have to buy his tourniquet from her. It started with a Thursday morning silence, not the usual kind, the early office hush before keyboards click and coffee brews. No, this was the dead air kind. The why is no one freaking out yet kind, calm before the market explodes kind. Rick didn't notice it at first. He was too busy rehearsing his investor deck in front of the mirror, smoothing his shirt collar like anyone gave a damn what he wore. He had quarterly goals to hit, charts to massage, buzzwords to weaponize. Then came the knock. Sonia from Customer Ops, eyes twitchy, face pale. "Rick, we've got a situation." Within the next hour, his inbox detonated. Shipment delay urgent. Order #4459 still unconfirmed. Client threatening breach over sensor module non-delivery. Who the hell is Viron Technologies, and why are they holding our order hostage? Rick stormed down the hallway like a suburban dad who just found out his lawn got egged. Procurement scrambled like rats in a spotlight, mumbling about contracts, reroutes, back-end glitches. "What do you mean the shipment's delayed?" he barked. Martin, most anxious of the lot, fumbled with a printout. The supplier pipeline for modules A17, C42, and M6S were shifted. Apparently, they've been rerouted through a new distribution entity. It's Viron Technologies. Who the hell is that? We thought it was just a supplier rebrand. All the specs matched. Fulfillment stayed consistent until now. Rick shoved past him and stalked back to his office, practically launching his MacBook open, typed Viron Technologies into Google like he was loading a gun. The first hit was a LinkedIn page. Banner, Viron Technologies Precision Embedded Solutions. Human focus, machine precision. Profile image, Tara, standing in front of a workbench, lab coat half-zipped, smirking like she knew this moment would come. Status update, posted 4 days ago. Proud to announce we've secured exclusive distribution contracts for 3 major component lines. Grateful to our partners for believing in builders. Hash women in tech hash from garage to grid hash Viron launch. Rick sat motionless. No yelling, no swearing. Just that boiling realization creeping into his jaw and fists and spine. He clicked into her profile. Recent activity, glowing, industry buzz. Comments from CEOs. Engineers resharing her product demos with captions like, finally, someone who gets it. Every scroll felt like another slap, another piece of proof that the person he dismissed, mocked, publicly humiliated, was now the reason his operations had flatlined. He opened Slack. Rick, why wasn't I told about this supplier shift? Who approved this? Martin, the routing ID stayed the same. They didn't tell us they changed partners. Fulfillment stayed stable, until now. Rick, so fix it. Call them, demand a priority reroute. Martin, we tried. They transferred us to their rep. Said all requests must go through legal now. Rick's palms sweated. His heart pounded. Legal? He hit redial on the old supplier contact. A robotic voice greeted him. Thank you for calling. You are being redirected to our new distribution partner for embedded systems, Viron Technologies. Please hold. Classical music kicked in. Something mocking. Harpsichord, maybe. Tara always liked Baroque. Back in her garage, no, office now. Tara stared at her screen. Orders were steady. Supplier dashboard glowing green, everything running like clockwork. Her phone rang. The number was familiar. She didn't flinch. She didn't answer. She just watched the seconds tick by, then it rang again. This time through the distributor's redirect line, same number. She smiled. The trap had sprung, not with blood, but with relevance. Let him wait. Let him wonder. Let the silence carry weight. Rick hadn't shaved in 3 days. His tie was askew, laptop screen littered with red font deadlines, and a dozen blinking chat windows screaming update. He looked like a man trying to juggle Molotovs blindfolded. The board meeting that morning had been short and surgical. They didn't yell, real power doesn't need volume. They just said things like, you assured us continuity. Our reputation is bleeding. Fix this. Immediately. And Rick, sweating through his button-up, nodded like a bobblehead wired to a taser. His calendar was a minefield. Client calls ghosted. Quarterly demo scrapped. A European partner had canceled their site visit without notice. The ops team had no answers. Half of them looked like they were Googling early signs of career collapse. He tried every contact he had at the old supplier. No one picked up. Then, finally, a general support agent answered. Rick barely waited for the greeting before launching in. I need to escalate a reroute. Component orders under our enterprise tier aren't fulfilling. This is a critical disruption. Of course, sir. Let me transfer you to our distribution partner. They now manage all embedded fulfillment tiers. No, I don't need a partner. I need priority clearance. Understood. Transferring now. Click. Another line. 2 rings, then Viron Technologies. Tara speaking. His mouth went dry, like chewing sand. There was no rage in her voice. No venom. Just the kind of calm you only hear from someone who's already survived the storm and built a skyscraper in the wreckage. He froze, then cleared his throat. Tara, I need to speak with your logistics head about order streamlining. We've encountered an unexpected. You're calling about your fulfillment backlog, she said, gently cutting him off. Yes, we've flagged the issue. I don't know what misunderstanding happened. This is serious. We've got contracts being jeopardized. I need expedited routing today, and I'm willing to authorize. There's no misunderstanding, Rick, she said, voice like clean steel. All fulfillment now routes through us exclusively. That includes inventory, scheduling, and client tier prioritization. His fingers dug into the desk edge. You can't just block our pipeline. I'll bring legal into this if I have to. You should, she said. All future inquiries must go through them anyway. Silence. He opened his mouth. Nothing came out. She didn't gloat. She didn't hang up. She just let the weight of her words sit on his chest like concrete. For a moment, he could hear his own heartbeat, loud, uneven. Somewhere outside his office, someone was shouting about a misrouted export form. He didn't move. Tara continued, voice still steady, almost gentle. Reserve the right to refuse service to clients who terminate in bad faith. That's clause 12.6. You signed off on it when you consolidated. You're not serious, he croaked. I'm methodical, she replied. The line stayed alive a few seconds longer, just breathing. Then came the soft click of her disconnecting. No drama, no echo, just silence. And in that silence, Rick stared down the barrel of every decision he'd made, every time he'd ignored her value, mocked her ambition, humiliated her in front of people who now worked for her. The panic didn't scream anymore. It just settled, thick, heavy, permanent. Tara didn't rehearse in front of a mirror. She rehearsed while torquing down mounting brackets, while running diagnostics on thermal tolerances, while spooning day-old chili into her mouth at 1:30 a.m. with a wrench in her back pocket. Every time she said it under her breath, it got sharper. Cleaner, calmer, not cruel, just inevitable. So when Rick's call finally came through the proper line, routed through 2 layers of legal, time-stamped and logged, she picked up without hesitation. No music this time, no intro fluff, just "This is Tara with Viron Technologies." She heard him breathe, that was all, just the hiss of air over regret. I've reviewed the details with our legal counsel, he said, voice low, clipped, prepared to re-establish our order history under a non-exclusive agreement. She closed her eyes. Not from nerves, just to feel the moment. The gravity of a man who used to call her overhead, now sounding like a man asking for oxygen. She didn't rush. She let the silence stretch just long enough for discomfort. Then came the line, perfect, intact, unshaken. We reserve the right to refuse service to clients who terminate in bad faith. Future inquiries must go through legal. No anger, no smugness, just truth, plain and irrevocable. On the other end of the line, silence, then something faint, a thud, the sound of a phone slipping maybe off a desk, a chair creaking, movement but no voice. She didn't hang up, she waited, but he never responded. After a minute, she ended the call with a soft click, like turning off a light in a room she no longer lived in. 15 minutes later, he got a text from someone she hadn't heard from since she was fired, Julius, one of the junior ops managers who always wore mismatched socks and never made eye contact. You just spoke to him, right? Yeah, he hasn't said a word since, just staring at the wall, even the intern scared. Tara didn't reply. She just sat back in her chair, the good one now, not the creaky folding thing from the garage. Her new office smelled like fresh plastic and ambition. Custom shelves were stocked, her team's Slack was alive with orders, and her inbox was humming with interest from 3 new regional partners. But for just a moment, she did nothing. No victory dance, no mic drop, just breathed. This wasn't revenge. This was confirmation that she had been right, that she had always been the pipeline, that the voice he tried to silence was now the only one with the power to say no, and she had, without rage, without noise, just a scalpel where he expected a sledgehammer, and he had no defenses left. The leak dropped on a Tuesday. No build-up, no teaser trailer, just a 6-minute MP3 titled Bad Faith, internal call with terminated engineer. The forums went feral. Industry Reddit threads popped off within minutes. Some thought it was fake, until someone confirmed the voice print matched Rick's internal comms. Another user posted a screenshot of Tara's voice log signature, still embedded in the distributor's metadata. The moment hit at timestamp 04:21. We reserve the right to refuse service to clients who terminate in bad faith. Future inquiries must go through legal. Then came the long, suffocating silence. The faint shuffle, the click. People didn't just hear it, they felt it. Tech startup CEOs replayed it during coffee meetings. Engineers clipped it into memes. HR blog wrote a piece called The Call that ended the old guard. Even a supply chain TikToker stitched the line into a video where they restocked boxes labeled accountability. By Thursday, Rick was nowhere to be seen. The company issued a lukewarm press statement. We appreciate Rick's years of leadership and have agreed he will be taking a leave of absence effective immediately. Translation: he was fired by Friday. The board appointed a temporary COO, someone with less bluster and more gray hair. Investors circled like buzzards in polos, demanding a stability roadmap and a new operations lead with vision. Nobody said Tara's name, but everyone was thinking it. Viron's site traffic quadrupled in 2 days. Tara's inbox overflowed with speaking requests, women in robotics, next-gen supply, embedded futures. She declined them all, Not out of spite, out of schedule. Pipeline was expanding into the Pacific Northwest. Her team had doubled in 3 weeks. She needed more warehouse space, not applause. Still, sometimes she'd re-listen to the leaked call, not for validation, but for data, for tone, for control. One night, while restocking inventory with her new ops lead, Gabe, now fully poached and thriving, she found herself laughing. "What?" he asked. She held up a small metal plaque, freshly delivered from the custom engraver. Viron Technologies, born from a pathetic hobby. She didn't hang it behind the desk. She put it right on top, centered, where every vendor, partner, and intern could see it the moment they walked in. Because that's what it had been, right? Just a little hobby, a tinkerer's distraction, something silly enough to fire her over. And now it was the artery half the region pulsed through. She looked out the window of her sleek new office. Not glass walls, she hated those. Just real walls, tools in reach, wires neatly coiled, and a whiteboard filled with ideas that no one would mock this time. She picked up her headset for the next vendor call. And just before she answered, she muttered to herself, "Funny how the same voice they tried to silence is now the one they have to call to survive." Appreciate you sticking around, you wise old rebels. Smash that subscribe button, or this fossil might just cause another epic fiasco.